So I guess the competition preparation is all about that emotional, psychological, obviously the physical side of things as well, but essentially the confidence that you have, self-belief that you are in the right place. You know, you've done this, you've practiced this all before.
It is. It's about, and I'm really careful about confidence, because I think it's, and this is why I always throw it back to confidence in the process of what I'm there to do. Because I think we've got two things. We've probably got confidence about what I'm there to do. And even if you're not fully confident, finding that way that you're going to make that happen. But we also have to have that acceptance of the stuff that we don't have control of. And again, I think, you know, a lot of A-type personalities love control. And actually, let's be blunt, sometimes luck plays a part, and sometimes acceptance of things that aren't in our control play a part, because what we don't want to do is spend lots and lots of emotional energy on stuff where we don't have massive control and things can go wrong. And sometimes we have to accept that that has happened, but also have that clear space to work out what we do next. And let's be blunt, if we've had the opportunity to practice as many scenarios as possible, we're probably going to do that better than if we haven't. So it is, you know, when we go, you know, and you can see we're almost running up and down this ladder of the things we want to have in play and working for us. And again, when we log, and if we have a competition that didn't go as well as possible, we might look at how we make adjustments in the other phases of that, in the training phase, in the recovery phase, in the competition phase, and indeed how we approach competition itself and how we are within competition. So absolutely, that confidence where it is, that real clarity of role, that focus on the processes, and I quite often describe it as having the dashboard in front of you. You know, am I focused on each of those things before I go into my nice place and just deal with the pain? You want to be coming back in and out of that before any of that quality drops off too much, don't you? We want, from that, we absolutely need to know what the underpinning performance skills are, and probably the focusing that we want. Where do we want to put our focus? And we want to know what effort we're going to put in different phases. I mean, you tell me, Philip, how many athletes have you had blow up because effort's gone in at the wrong time, at the wrong levels?
Oh, it's one of the most common mistakes in triathlon. You know, the individual goes, is it biking for show, running for dough is the old expression. I'm sure there's similar ones in golf and all sorts of other sports as well. But, you know, just emphasis in the wrong place.
So that would take me back to a real skill, which sounds like a pathetic skill, but it's the ability to have a plan in place and actually follow that plan. I mean, it's a wonderful athletic skill to be able to actually say, this is the plan of what I'm going to do, and then actually do what you said in that plan, rather than, oh, well, I felt like this, so I did something different. And I would say, again, if we're looking, you know, so I'm looking at perhaps what we do as a season, but also how we get a build. And if we think about the ability to follow a plan, between a coach and an athlete, it becomes very much easier to make changes and tweak stuff. If you said, right, we followed the plan as well as we can, so we now need to do this, rather than I had the plan and then I went and did something different. So don't underestimate what a great athletic skill that is. I will also say, of course, that plan should have in place what happens when things go wrong. So, you know, it does accommodate maybe 2 or 3 different layers. And having that real knowledge and pressure-proof training of the skills that underperform, that underpin good performance is really critical. So we try and keep that event as simple as possible, but no simpler than it needs to be. It's a great saying by Einstein. How do we make it as simple as possible, but no simpler? And then going to do that. And as I say, if you have that mission and you have that clarity, and then within that, of course, it becomes very, very procedural. When do I optimize when I eat? When do I optimize when I put my various checks in? You know, all of those things that you should know from your training log and the processes that you follow there into the recovery, into the competition preparation, into competition skills. There should be a lovely flow and a sense that it makes sense. And if it makes sense through those, it probably does make sense. And it allows development, because what we know is if you've got athletes who want to find out how good they can be, they're probably not going to do it in their first year. They're probably not going to do it in their second year. They probably need a development over, you tell me, Philip, how many years do you have athletes before you've seen them be as good as possible?
I think you see good performers coming to us sort of saying, I want to win my age group or something. And these are people who already maybe have a bit of promise. And then it's a sort of a 3-year, sort of maybe even 5 years in some instances, depending where they're at. But I always feel that there's a lot of people come to us say, I want to qualify for Kona as a kind of a classic example. And it's sort of going back to your point about an element of luck. You need to get yourself into a position in year one where there's a possibility of you qualifying, and then the next year you want it to be the probability that you'll be qualifying. And it's a very subtle distinction. There is clearly luck in there, and you can't guarantee these sort of things, especially when you're racing against other people, for a medal position or something. That's there is an element which is out of your control. You can't control what other people do. But yeah, that kind of idea that it takes a series of phases to get there is, I think, really important to recognize.
Yeah, and I think the point you made there, that if someone's aim is Kona, for instance, actually what you've got to do is you've got to get them to have some wins along the way, haven't you? So you've got to have your staging posts, and you've got to have that feel that development is happening, and you've got to have measurables that show that. And again, that's all the things that really make a quality program. And so I think what you probably see when you're talking to me now is a lot of the stuff that I would do as a psych would be done in concert with a coach, and I may be adding little areas on the edges of this, but there's huge crossover between the psychologist and a coach in how we would approach what we're doing here. And it's probably that communication between all interested groups that makes that work properly, or stops that working properly if you don't get it, in simple terms.